to be here, everybody. Fire away. Am I supposed to point, or how do you guys want me to do it?
I'll actually do it.
Okay, I got you.
All right, good afternoon. Welcome to today's second press conference. It features offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb from Washington. We will have 15 minutes of availability with Coach Grubb. Then we'll open it up to availability with 5 Husky offensive players. After Coach Grubb makes a brief opening statement, we will open the floor to questions. Again, please wait for the microphone to ask your question, and please identify yourself by name and media outlet. Thank you. All right, Coach.
Yeah, great to be here representing University of Washington, and just excited to be part of the Sugar Bowl and get our guys out on that field and enjoy this process. So appreciate y'all.
Right over here to the left.
Hey, Ryan, Pat 40 from Sports Illustrated.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you can tell me the worst road trip in the Great Plains Athletic Conference and why you guys' coaching has been able to translate up levels from there.
Well, the worst one was probably my first one, and I just didn't know the mode of operation. So we were going to Nebraska Wesleyan, and we stopped for the pregame meal, which was at a park, and we pulled the coolers out of the bus and had sandwiches before the game. So I was like, wow, this is intense. But no, they were all great. I enjoyed all of them. I think as far as your question, the translation piece is, we're mentors and teachers first. And I think that the better you can be at filling in gaps and doing the best with the resources that you have, regardless of where you're at, if you're at the New York Jets or Washington or University of Sioux Falls, it doesn't matter. I think you always want to make the most of what you have and, try to do a great job with the resources that are available, and then make everything about the players and the people. And I think that translates no matter where you're at.
All right, we'll go to the right side in the back.
Hey, Ryan, Ralph Russo with the Associated Press. What's the dynamic of being the play caller for a guy who has made his reputation as a play caller? Obviously, you and Kalen have worked together for a long time, but what's it like calling plays for somebody who has called plays?
Well, I think it depends on the relationship. It can be a little bit brutal, or it can be awesome. And mine definitely would be the latter. I think that part of that is the relationship that you have with the person you're working with can be either that of a sounding board or a critic. And I think Kalen's always been good at that. And obviously, long before I was calling plays, I was sitting in that room with him as his sounding board. So prior to being a coordinator, Kalen and I were working together, coming up with solutions and thinking of ideas and ways to be creative offensively. And I think that relationship has just stayed status quo. And so I've always felt the ability to stay creative and things like that and not worry about, the critical part, only that there would be just, a constant flow of information of, hey, I see this, I see that. And then just knowing that he doesn't have to have the pressure of doing that, that there can be trust both ways as far as, just let me take care of the offense. There's a lot, obviously, that Kalen has to tend to. So I think there's a lot of freedom in it.
All right, left side on the aisle.
Yes, Ted Lewis from the Times-Picayune, New Orleans. Your offensive line won the Joe Moore Award. What's the significance of that, really? And tell me how good your offensive line is.
Yeah, I think the significance part is, it's one of the most unique awards. I don't think our guys get too high or low based on certain awards, but, that being a group award, especially that's kind of the team within the team and the dynamics that you have to have within an offensive line unit make it very special. And that group or that unit has had to overcome a lot of injuries throughout the season. So to stay together and turn into a really good unit, I think says a lot for the room and Coach Huff and what they've been able to accomplish. And I think they're very athletic. I think they're smart. I think that they've learned to be resourceful with some of the situations that they've been put in. And I think they're still hungry. I think they still think they can play their best game yet.
Front row, right side.
Mike Morrell, Seattle Times. Ryan, obviously so many playmakers in this offense, but I wanted to ask about Jack Westover, guy who's been there for a long time, former walk-on, and what makes him kind of a different dude from a personality standpoint, but also what he brings. And I'm curious, when you came in 2 years ago, did you have a sense of who this guy was and what he could do, or was there a point where he kind of showed you what he was capable of?
I think that's a great question. I think Jack's been showing us, the breadth of his playing style. He just is so versatile. And that was one of the things that stood out to me right away with Jack was his athleticism and all the different things that he could do, in our offense. And that was something that, in our system, we always feel like guys like that can have a role, and find ways to be productive within our system. And Jack, to his credit, because of how bright he is and just a really astute football player, has been able to maximize that role, and just show his ability to continue to find different ways to utilize him. And I think that says a lot to, both his intelligence and, just his savvy as a football player.
We're going to stay right here in the front row on the right side.
Ryan, Danny Davis with the Austin American-Statesman. What makes Rome such a good receiver, and how vital is he to this Washington offense?
Rome is, obviously very vital, and I think that one of the things that always shows up on any good team is, in critical and big moments, your best guys have to step up and make big plays. And you could go down throughout the season, and Rome has made those plays on almost every single week. So as far as what makes him special, I think Rome is never satisfied. I think he's a guy that truly feels like his technique can be better, how he runs a route can be better, his separation can be better, he can understand the concept more. Again, another guy extremely blessed to have within our system. He's incredibly bright, one of the smartest receivers I've ever been around, and is physical, tough, wants to be out there every day, grinding, trying to get better, and he's a phenomenal kid, and I think he's going to be really, really special on Sundays.
All right, left side, front row.
Hey, Coach, I'm Dave Farenthold from the New York Times. One of the things I think that's changed college football a lot in a way that fans may not see is the rise of NIL collectives. Can you explain sort of how much those have changed the way the game works and the way recruiting and retaining works, and how have y'all tried to take advantage of that to make this team better, to make this team what it is?
You said 15 minutes, right?
Correct.
Okay. There's a lot to that. I think one of the things I would say that I think is from a positive side is I've seen definitely more good than bad. I've seen kids and families that have had resources to be able to have families travel to games that would not have been able to send money back home, things like that. And we've been really fortunate with some of our guys that make more money, that have done it very responsibly and not been any different. When you look at the Troy Fatanu, Mike Penix, Roma Dunze, Jalen McMillan, those guys have been the same guys. It has not changed them one bit, other than benefiting them to be able to think about, do I want to be a late round draft pick or come back and try to improve my stock and be a higher draft pick and, utilize NIL to make the most of my talent. So I think there's a piece there that can be really valuable, but honestly, the changing landscape is literally monthly almost. And I think about when Michael came to Seattle, there was talk of what the University of Washington would do, a collective and all these things. And now just to see how much it's changed and grown, and obviously, Michael has reaped the benefits of that for sure, and he's earned it. But it is so much different now. And so when people talk about money as the first thing that they want to know about with your program and things like that, I think that, antennas can go up there a little bit, but I don't think you can back away from the conversation and just try to be part of it. I think even the playing field and trying to figure out ways to understand what the maximum amount would be and making that level for all the teams would be the logical thing, but obviously free enterprise is free enterprise, and you certainly want these kids to be able to get everything that is possible.
All right, we're going to go to the right side in the very back on the aisle.
Yep.
Brandon Orsello, 24/7 Sports. Coach, I was wondering, why are so many coaches loyal to Coach DeBoer over the years? Yourself, Chuck, I know you've had opportunities to go elsewhere at quote-unquote bigger schools, but what makes Kalen special to work for him?
Yeah, I think that, everybody probably has a different answer for those things, but I think when you're looking at wherever you're working, you want to be somewhere where, number one, you feel like you can make an impact, where you can be yourself. And those are things that were important to me that my style of offense and the things that I wanted to accomplish, that, I didn't want a bunch of restrictions on that, and I wanted to be able to be more collaborative with the people I was going to be with and have more control of that situation. And so I feel like I do have a lot of input with what happens with the program. And so at that point, especially last season, I just really felt like, everything that we had invested with the players and the kids that we had coming back, and, the talks that I had had with those kids like Troy and Rome and Michael, just trying to get those guys to stay and be part of it for another year was important. And then as far as Kalen, I think you just always want to work with people that you're growing. And I felt like I was still in a position of growth, and that was going to continue to happen if I stayed put.
All right, left side, second row.
Hey, Coach. I had a chance to stand next to Trevante Sweat this morning, and he's the largest human being I've ever seen. I stood next to your center, Parker Brailsford. There's about 100 pounds difference there. What do you do with a guy like that?
You got to block him. You got to keep bodies on him at all times. I think you got to try to wear him out. And I think he's a really, really talented athletic player. I've said this before. I think they got great front players, but I'm always amazed with how well their front is coached. I think Texas has done a phenomenal job with the technique and how hard those guys play, but they don't play the whole game. And so I think trying to wear them down a little bit and get our guys to have the right type of mindset and physical mentality to just keep them moving and try to wear them out.
All right, stay on the left side in the back left.
Yep.
Hey, Coach. Raymond Lucas, 247 Sports. You had the opportunity to take the job at Alabama but chose not to. How satisfying is it for you to not only reach the college football playoff with Washington, but doing it alongside Coach DeBoer?
Yeah, very satisfying. I think, regardless of other opportunities, I think this was the reason I came to Washington. And I know when Kalen and I first started talking about him taking that job and if I would go with or not, my response was pretty quick to accept the position, just because it wasn't necessarily the onset of my career, like this is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a Power 5 coordinator and et cetera. That wasn't the trajectory right at the beginning. But as the career wears on and you start to see some exposure to different levels, specifically Division I, and you start seeing, why your system and your culture can be really special, I was excited to be able to put it on the biggest stage. And I felt like our system would work almost anywhere, and just how we relate to people and get the culture right within the locker room, that big things were possible.
All right, Coach, we have time for 2 more questions. We're going to
You
start
bet.
right here on the aisle, third row, left side.
Coach, David Ubben with The Athletic. David Ubben with The Athletic. When you guys got to Washington, what was your philosophy on recruiting your current roster, mining the portal, and sort of shopping for a quarterback? And what did that process look like landing on Mike?
Well, the recruiting right away was very busy. I spent the better part of the first 10 days recruiting Jalen McMillan, Roma Dunze, and Jalen Polk, and they were all going in the portal. And not in a bad way, and I mean this because they were confused. They were going on their third head coach, and they just wanted to get it right, And so sitting down with those guys and a multitude of other players, when it was really just Kalen and I in Seattle, right away, the first part of December was really just Kalen and I in Seattle, just kind of like talking to guys, meeting them, spending time, and then really, just like you were saying, recruiting them, sitting down, showing them how the offense has worked over the last 15 years, how we've utilized different receivers, backed by stats, and just watching film with them and then just getting to know them. And I think that part, allowed us a door to be open to begin the relationship. And my only request to the guys was just, let's just go through this and work at building this relationship, because you can't walk into a room and instantly have a relationship. We have to work on it. As long as we can have a little bit of trust and see if we can get this thing rolling a little bit, will be great. And so those guys were very open to that process and did a great job of buying in right away once we got rolling. And then as far as the quarterback, when I got there was 2 scholarship quarterbacks there, Sam Heward and Dylan Morris. I met with those guys right away. I told them that we can't be a championship program with 2 scholarship quarterbacks, and that I would be bringing at least one quarterback in to compete with them. And at that point, Michael was not in the portal yet. Once he got in, felt pretty strongly that he was going to be a guy that would, not only fit in our system but excel. And really, we just had to find a way to keep Mike healthy, And so his first winter with us was his first year that he had an off season since he was at Tampa Tech. And so I think that first winter was really the platform and the catalyst for Mike starting to have the success that he's had the last 2 years.
All right, last question on the left side.
Coach Ted Lewis from the Times. Ted Lewis from the Times-Picayune, New Orleans. I know you're caught up in the moment right now, but how much thought, discussion have you and the staff, maybe the players, given toward next year when you make the move to the Big Ten, and what's it going to take to keep Washington on top like you are right now?
That's a great question, and it is hard to balance that out. Right now it's tough to see the forest through the trees, but obviously recruiting and roster management and future thought play into every week. So we certainly have those discussions. I think that our footprint will still be on the West Coast recruiting and getting the best players out there. We'll dip in where we need to and get the Dylan Johnsons out of Mississippi when necessary. But as far as us, how it plays out, we're just excited to be playing, some of the best teams in the country on a weekly basis. For us, I don't think it changes who we are, what we do, but continue to be relevant in the top 5, top 10 discussion is something that, everything we do from how we operate in the off season to the type of people we bring in the program will be, obviously super important.
Thank you, Coach.
You bet. Thanks, everybody.
Good morning and welcome to the first day of the official press conferences for the College Football Playoff Semifinal at the All-State Sugar Bowl. Please turn off all your cell phones for our press conferences. Today's first press conference features Texas Defensive Coordinator Pete Kwiatkowski. We'll have 15 minutes of availability with Coach Kwiatkowski. Then we'll open availability with 5 Texas defensive players. After Coach makes a brief opening statement, we'll open the floor to questions. Please wait for the microphone to ask your question, and please identify yourself by name and media outlet. Thank you. Coach?
Good morning. Well, obviously we're very excited to be here. Starting last January after our season got done, the guys would go back to work, and the guys put in a lot of time and energy to get to this point, and obviously very excited to be here, and obviously playing a quality opponent, and who I have a history with, and who the team has a history with from facing them last year. And so we're all excited to see what we can put out there on the field, and see if we can play like we have played all year long.
All right, thanks, Coach. We'll open it up to questions. We'll go right here in the front row.
Andre Richardson, OrangeBuzz.com. Pete, your third down defense has been outstanding throughout this entire year. What has been the key for you guys to get off of third downs?
Well, it starts with we've made an emphasis because we weren't as good last year on third down, so it was a huge emphasis in the off season, through camp and all season long. And then at the end of the day, we design the defenses and the calls, and then the guys have just done a great job of executing all year long. They understand the importance of it, and obviously take a lot of pride in it, and the results are what they are.
All right, left side, second row.
PK, when we began the season, you talked about the need for greater urgency when it came to forcing turnovers. Obviously you started the year really well and kind of hit a lull mid part of the year and then picked it back up. Just overall, how have you felt the unit's done and kind of respond to that challenge of forcing more turnovers?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot better than it's been. I've been through a lot of seasons where we've had seasons like this where the ball's bounced our way, or we've created the opportunities to get the ball. I just think the guys, again, are executing the confidence level, the ability to know what they're doing, be able to execute what they're doing, and then having the awareness to attack the ball in the situations that present themselves. And again, it comes back to the emphasis. We talked about the third down emphasis, and the turnovers was a huge emphasis. And so, as coaches, we emphasize that. The players build on it, and then with the confidence, the experience that the guys have, they don't get caught up in so much worrying about their alignment and their assignment, and just getting and surviving. Now there's more familiarity with what they're supposed to do, and so now they're able to take it to that next step, attacking the ball.
We'll stay right here in the second row on the left side.
Joe Cook with Inside Texas. What has Tavondre Sweat allowed you to do with the rest of your defense? And then Tavondre's a fifth-year senior. He's just an older human being than a lot of the guys he's facing. How is that just an advantage to be 23, 24 when facing maybe 19 and 20-year-olds?
Yeah, so there's two pieces to Tavondre. Obviously, the physical stature that you mentioned, but also his level of maturity and growth as a teammate, a leader, has been awesome. From the first year that we got here to now, to see his growth and how he approaches, how he communicates with the guys. Not so when it's going great, but when it's not going. When we face adversity, he's a very influential guy in that locker room, and so to see his growth from a leadership standpoint, it's been awesome. And then, yeah, he's a big dude. That's, there's an athlete somewhere inside that body. That's what we always joke about. But he is hard to move. He eats up a lot of space. He takes multiple blockers, and so that frees up the linebackers, gives us a little bit more, bit of a luxury to be able to play with lighter boxes because of what those two guys inside can do in the run game.
We'll go to the front row on right side here.
Chip Brown with Horns 24/7. PK, can you talk about the challenge of trying to get pressure on Penix against the Joe Moore Award-winning offensive line?
Yeah.
And secondly, it seemed like some of the issues in the pass defense seemed to come when you were trying to protect a lead. Can you talk about what was going on against Houston and TCU and K-State?
So trying to get to Penix, obviously the offensive line does a good job of protecting, but it goes hand in hand. When the quarterback gets rid of the ball on time and is in rhythm, you're not going to get there. So from a defensive perspective, the coverage and the rush, they go hand in hand. Most of the sacks that we've gotten, or anybody gets, is because the coverage forces the quarterback to hold it, right, confuse them, right, or quarterbacks trying to do more with it than they should. And then, because rarely do we get blowaways, right, where guys just, unless they bust the protection. And the Washington offensive line does a really good job. They're very athletic. They do a good job working together. Obviously communicate very well, and they don't bust very much. And so, yeah, we got a huge challenge in front of us. And then in reference to the late, I don't know, I guess you're referring to a lot of it's big plays, right? And whether it's a coverage bust or guys in position that just doesn't make a play on the ball. And then some of it is tackling. It's a short throw, and we don't get him on the ground, and then it goes from a 5-yard gain to a 20-yard gain. And so, you can't just pinpoint it on one thing. Maybe we gave him too much time on plays, and quarterbacks around there scrambling around and can't cover forever. So it's not just one thing. I know the guys in their heart and they believe they can play at a high level, and it's football. They have scholarship players and they have good athletes, and so as much as teams throw, some teams are going to get yards. As long as they don't get in the end zone, we're good with it.
All right, left side, second row.
Hey, PK, Bob Ballou, CBS Austin, right here. Sark's talked a lot in the last month about the culture, the development of the love and the vulnerability and those kind of things. How do you describe your relationship with your players and just your personality when it comes to understanding what your defense needs?
Yeah, I'm more of a reserved guy on the staff, but when I do speak, I think maybe it resonates more because everybody's looking around, sort of like, where'd this come from? But you know, we all, at the end of the day, we all are working to get better. And as coaches, we're trying to get these guys to play to the best of their ability. And then when you pair that with what you're doing, you know, how their family's doing, you know, the relationships you build with them and what you talk about off the field, away from football, it all matters. And I just think it's been a journey. It's been a lot of work in building that trust and that connection over the last few years. And I think when you build trust, they believe, and then when you start playing well, it generates confidence, and then you got that synergy that gets you to something like this.
All right, right side, front row.
Coach Kwiatkowski, Terry Middleton, Horns Illustrated. So you've had several weeks to kind of prepare for this game, knowing, you know, you probably have extreme confidence in that front line, and there's been some challenges in the secondary. Since you've had this time to practice and prepare, are you equally as confident in both the secondary and as you are in the front line?
No, definitely. You don't get to this spot without guys showing that they can do it. You know, everything gets talked about the pass defense, and yeah, we'd like to be better in that. But at the end of the day, there's a lot more to it than just that, right? We've been great against the run. We've been good in the red zone. We've been good on third down, and the situations that matter that gets the ball back for the offense, we've been able to execute and perform. So I know the guys have the confidence to do it, and they're fired up for this challenge because we're going to be playing a lot of very talented, good receivers, and can't wait to get out there and see what we can do.
All right, left side in the middle.
Kirk Bowles from the Austin American-Statesman. Pete, if you can look back 2 years ago, you know, was kind of the roughest start probably you can imagine, you know, taking over a new job with Sark here. Can you kind of trace your satisfaction and how you've kind of come from that first year to, I don't know, maybe having one of the best defense you've ever had? I don't know.
Yeah, it's just I've been doing this for 35 years, and there's great seasons and there's tough seasons, and then it always comes back to football is football. Don't make it more than it is, and stick to the process of growing and getting better. And then you go out on Saturday and you go out there and put it all out there, and you're either good enough or you're not. And then whether you win or lose, you come back and you do the same process again. And as human beings, that can be hard when you're losing. And then obviously when you're winning, it becomes easier, more enjoyable. But yeah, it's the process of, you know, putting the defense together, working the fundamentals, the techniques, and getting everybody on the same page. And you do it day in and day out, and then after this year, we start the process all over again. And so, yeah, we had some good ones at Boise and Washington, and this is definitely right up there with them for sure.
All right, right side, front row.
Hey, Coach Thomas Jones of the Austin American-Statesman. This is probably the most productive passing attack you've seen since Oklahoma. How's your secondary, specifically, you know, your pass defense, better equipped to hold up against receivers? And what areas of improvement have you seen in the pass defense since that OU game?
Just better understanding of the leverage, and you know, we've tweaked some things in the back end that have helped them. But at the end of the day, they're going to catch the ball. We got to get them on the ground, right? And so when we tackle, right, we have it and don't give up explosive plays, and we try and force these offenses to drive the length of the field. We're pretty good, but it's all about tackling and controlling the explosive plays. And then there's the deep balls they're one-on-ones, right? And they do a good job. We got to go up and compete, and we got to play the hands, play the ball, and there's no magic answer to that other than competing and being where you're supposed to be, and then at the when you're high pointing the ball, right, and making a play on the ball, playing the hands, and hopefully getting the ball stripped out.
All right, Coach, we have time for 2 more questions. We're going to start on the right side in the middle.
Andrea Adelson, ESPN.com. Coach, you mentioned earlier familiarity with playing this team. How much does it help that you've already faced Penix last season in the bowl game? And also, do you feel like there's a greater motivational level for your defense to play better than last time against them?
Yeah, as competitors, you always want to get another shot at somebody that's beating you, and so that's no different in this instance. And then having already played him, just we've watched him a lot, and he does an outstanding job of getting the ball out and from multiple platforms. Right, he could be looking one way and then flick the ball the other way, and he's got good touch and good accuracy, and he's got really good receivers that he's thrown to. So. Yeah, we know how good he is from last year playing him and watching him all year long. We know what kind of challenge we got on Monday.
All right, last question, back left side, back row.
Ted Lewis from the New Orleans Times. Speaking of 2 things. First of all, can you confirm the suspension of Derek Williams, and how does that affect the team, at least for one half? Also, you were asked about Washington's offensive line winning the Joe Moore Award. Are they the best offensive line you face this year, and what makes them so effective?
Yeah, so Derek's won't be in the first half from the targeting penalty from the last game, and next man up, and he'll be ready to go in the second half. And then the O-line at Washington has done an outstanding job all season long, keeping Penix on his feet, and in the run game. And the offensive line coach is one of my best friends, and so we know each other very well, and he's done an outstanding job, and we'll have to go out on Monday and see how we can do against them.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome to the second press conference. Today's features co-defensive coordinators William Inge and Chuck Morrell from Washington. We will have 15 minutes of availability with each coordinator, and then we'll open up to availability with 5 Husky offensive players. After each coach makes a brief opening statement, we will open the floor to questions. Please wait for the microphone to ask your question and identify yourself by name and media outlet. Coach Inge, would you mind going first?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Wishing you all a very happy holidays during this time of the year. It's a great time. We're excited to be able to be here and looking forward for a great game with us against Texas Longhorns.
Coach Morrell?
Yeah, just echo what Coach Inge just talked about. I'm really excited for our kids. I think they've been through some tremendous things this year and very deserving the opportunity that they have in front of them, and I know they're excited and ready to showcase themselves here on Monday.
I will open up to questions. Please identify which coach you're directing your question to. We'll go to the right side in the back.
David Upman with The Athletic. For both of you guys, when you guys first took over at Washington, what was on the priority list of things that you needed to do to start to try and fix this thing? And what was sort of the difference for you as at Fresno, the difference in trying to do that in 2022 versus 2 years earlier?
Well, probably the biggest thing that we did to start off on our end was to make sure we had great staff cohesiveness. obviously between us and the staff that was coming. I think the biggest thing that we had is a majority of the staff came in. So there was one element that we didn't really have to worry about as much from a staffing standpoint. The next thing that we really had to do was really get to work and grind with the players. And we saw them really attached to everything that they were doing. Like obviously ourselves with the front seven and Coach Morrell managing everything in the secondary. I think it was really good to see how the guys really opened up and took heed to the system, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is just establishing, you know, Coach DeBoer's culture. I mean, that's first and foremost. He's got a unique culture that's carried him through a lot of success, and really just getting our guys to buy into that and being selfless and having a 1-0 mindset, and the rest of the stuff is taking care of itself from my view.
We'll go to the right side, front.
Danny Davis with the Austin American-Statesman. Chuck, obviously y'all get to see talented receivers every day in practice, but what stands out about Xavier Worthy when you look at him on the film?
Yeah, top end speed. I think he's got a credible. He might be one of the fastest guys, if not the fastest player that we've played against this season. Obviously, it's, you know, round two. We've seen, you know, most of these guys a year ago, almost exactly a year ago. And, you know, I think he's definitely improved his game, really involved in their explosive plays, doing a better job, I think, this year of running his route tree. And, you know, he's a threat anytime he touches the ball.
Okay, we'll go to the left side, front row.
Hey, coaches. Dave Farenthold from the New York Times. We talked yesterday with the offensive side about Montlake Futures, the NIL collective, and the role they played in getting some great players to stick around for another year and not go to the league last year. How did that affect you guys? I mean, what was the impact on the defense?
Yeah. I mean, obviously those guys do a great job, and I think it's an opportunity where our guys had a feeling coming out of last year. You know, we're, you know, going from 4-8 to 11-2, and having an opportunity to have almost everybody back again this year, in the success we've had this season. And so, you know, I think a lot of guys take a look at, hey, where's my draft status at comparative to an opportunity to come back and play another year. And we're fortunate that, you know, we got a lot of our top tier guys back on both sides of the ball.
We'll stay on the left side in the second row.
Kim Grinolds from Dogman.com up in Seattle. For both of you, 13-0, undefeated, ranked second in the country, yet you're underdogs again. How does that sit with both of you guys and the team?
It's okay, because I think, as you know, Kim, it's something that we're used to, and that's all right, because in the end, the only thing we can do is really keep our focus on us, what we have to do, our task at hand, making sure we go out and work, and in the end of the day, try to have a mission to go 1-0 for the week.
All right, we'll go to the right. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'm good.
All right, we'll go to the right side, front row.
Dan Rayleigh from Inside the Huskies. This is for both coaches. Kyle Flood of Texas described your defense as an NFL-style defense, and he said the front seven is used in a unique manner they don't typically see. What would you say to that? Would you agree with that? What do you think of his assessment?
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I think we've you know, think about what we've, you know, had to defend this last season. Obviously, a lot of respect for the Pac-12 offenses. There's some incredible, you know, offensive systems that we face throughout the course of the year, and I think there's got to be, you know, a diversity in what you do schematically. There's so many good quarterbacks that we've faced. I mean, look at all the Heisman guys that are out on the West Coast this year, and if you show them the same picture, the same look, you're going to be in for a long day. And you know, so we've challenged our guys to be multiple in their approach, multiple in our looks, and multiple, you know, with every phase of what we do. And I think that's been a net benefit to us when, you know, some of the guys, caliber of, you know, opposing quarterbacks that we face throughout the course of the season.
Yep, and I would definitely agree with what he said, and probably one of the bigger things is when you have an opportunity to go against some of that in practice on a day-to-day basis, it's going to allow you to be multiple and to become a lot more multiple. So we've had an opportunity to evolve over the last 2 years and put our players in scenarios where they can be able to be successful at the point of attack.
All right, we'll stay in the front row on the right side.
Thomas Jones, Austin American-Statesman. And whoever kind of handles the running game more, or you can answer this question. In the bowl game last year, you had some success against them in their run game. What was the reason for that, and how does Texas look in the run game compared to last year?
The run game, they're efficient and effective. I think the biggest thing that, you know, for them, Their running backs, per se, number 5 Bijan and those guys were not there, so they came in with their next guys. But I think the biggest thing our guys did is we really pride ourselves on being able to be fundamentally sound and making sure we're all executing our job. At one time, we have a one of 11 mission. Every person doing your job exactly the way it's supposed to be done when you're supposed to do it. So that's something that we really set ourselves out to do on a day-to-day basis in practice and games. So that's kind of the core fabric of what we want to be able to do and continue to become.
All right, we'll go to the far left, first row, left side.
Brandon Marcello, 24/7 Sports. Chuck, this is for you. I was just wondering about the haven of coaching in Sioux Falls. Yourself, Kalen, Bob Young, Curtis Riggs, Jim Knights. What is it about that area and the coaches that have come through there and have so much success? And what are your fondest memories of being in Sioux Falls?
It's my alma mater, obviously, so that's the first thing. And I think just, growing up as a young coach and some of the incredible experiences that the young men in our program had, I can, remember them clear as day. An opportunity for, those guys at the small college level to win multiple national championships and the joy that they had in those moments is what really sticks with me. And I think, that coaching group, goes back to the mentorship of Bob Young, as you mentioned, and just a very unique human being. There's nobody else in the country I've ever come across that's anything close to him. And he's, 98% about culture and was probably 2% about football. And so when you look at our culture today, I mean, there's so many similarities, and I think the way that, and certainly Coach DeBoer has his own way of directing a program, but there's a lot of carryover from that. And why is Washington here? I think it's a big part of going back to those roots at that time in those days.
All right, we'll stay on the left side in the front row.
Hi, coaches. Chris Egan, King 5 TV in Seattle. To both of you, there are 9 six-year seniors on this UW football team, several of them on the defense, several of them are starters. Just what have they meant to this team and just all the success you guys have had?
When you have a chance to have a mature team, it puts you in a position to be able to be successful because they have what you call a lot of sweat equity in the program from a developmental standpoint, from a scheme understanding standpoint, and from a performance standpoint. And when they buy into the culture that Coach DeBoer has brought in and we all put that into place, you can see some of the great benefits that come into play now. Whenever you have an element of maturity about yourself, there are some things you can do that'll be a little bit different, and we put our players under a lot of put them in a lot of tactful, stressful scenarios, and they're able to thrive in a lot of those moments. So that's some of the benefits that you can see when you have a mature team.
Yeah, and I would just add that, the stage is never too big for them, and that's the great thing about having veteran leadership. I think about over the last 2 seasons and the volume of big games we've played in, the stage is never too big. And it's due to guys that have been through, 6 years of college football that, come Monday night, it's another game. It's an important game, but it'll never be too big for them.
All right, we're going to stay on the left side in the middle on the aisle.
Hi, Ethan Kilbreth for The Daily. And for either coach, what does this game mean to those veterans who have stuck with Washington and now are able to be in the college football playoff?
I mean, honestly, you'd have to ask them. I think I know what they'd say. They came to Washington for a reason, and to see them, have an opportunity. That's a program that expects championships, expects to be successful, and have those guys have an opportunity to go out on top. I mean, what better storybook ending could you write than that? And obviously, the thing we talk about with them all the time is the respect that we have for them for the years and years of training and what Coach Inge said, sweat equity and the blood and the tears that they poured in to the University of Washington. You just wanted to see it pay off for them.
All right, we'll stay on the left side.
Mike Morrell, Seattle Times. For either of you guys, I mean, you talked about the veteran leadership of this team, but for Eddie Ulofoshio, who's going into his final games at UW, how do you evaluate an impact that transcends tackles and what he's doing on the field in terms of the example that he sets and all the other things that he brings to the program? How would you describe that?
Well, there's so many things that he does that you can't put evaluation on it because he is so strong in every aspect. When you talk about one of the first guys in the building on a day-to-day basis, one of the individuals who's probably preparing just as much as a coach when it comes to him being able to be on his daily craft and to see what he had to go through and overcome over the last 2 years, coming back from an injury. It's exactly what you want a young person to be able to endure when you have to attack adversity. He did just that. He stayed on course. He bought into everything that we were talking about from a cultural standpoint. And you get to reap all the benefits because there are a lot of players on a football team that will carry the personality of Edefuan Ulofoshio moving forward when he is not in this program, because he will leave his mark and will have left his mark in this program. And that's one of the primary reasons why we're able to be successful. When you have a leader like him, I think Coach Morrell brought this up earlier, when you're about 98% culture, 2% football, well, he is one of those guys that definitely enhances and strengthens your culture.
All right, we have time for 2 more questions. We're going to start in the back right side.
Ralph Russo with the Associated Press. Thinking back to when you got here, you guys didn't necessarily flip this roster. And I'm wondering, like, when you're going through that process and you're making those assessments, when did you realize and how did you realize that, I think we have a good group here, we would like to keep it, as opposed to maybe like trying to flip the roster?
Yeah, I guess every time you walk into a new environment, I think maybe what's not recognized, from people from the outside is, man, every football coach in America works their tails off. Every one of them recruits like crazy. So, and obviously the coaches that came before us there, they had a lot of skin into it, and they invested their time and their energy. And, I think when we had a chance to sit down and meet one-on-one with the players, evaluate their film, but also get to know them as people, because, like, I know we're hitting on this a lot, but it was really about us getting to know and grow a bond with those guys and show them, that we cared, and that we were here to help them be successful, and that this is going to be a player-led operation. And I think it was more about that in the beginning, about building that relationship with our players and finding out which guys fit into the way that Coach DeBoer wants to operate his program as the main priority. And then, certainly over time, find out the guys through spring practices and fall camps, that the talent level was there for us to be successful and play great team football.
Yep, I would definitely agree there. One of the main things we looked at coming in is when you look at the culture of where all of us have come from, it's being able to make a choice, and we chose them. And with us choosing them, we wanted to keep them around, and we're all about the development of young people. So if you can develop young people in the right way, you get to reap some of these benefits. So that was one of our main premises that we also took upon coming into UW as well.
All right, last question on left side on the aisle.
Christian Capel from On Montlake. Chuck, you guys got Asa back for the Pac-12 championship game. What's it been like for him in trying to battle back through injury, dealing with playing with a club or maybe not playing with a club now? And what's his availability like for this game, and how does that change things for you on the back end if he is fully available?
Yeah, we're counting on. Yeah, he's there, and I just proud of him. He's gone through a lot, and the mental challenges of being injured and trying to play through. And again, he's a ultimate preparer, and having both him and Cam Fab back in the mix here late in the season was definitely a plus for us. And those guys do such a fantastic job of operating in the back half and running the show. They prepare like pros every single day, and it leads us to being really sound in the back half. So it's great having Asa back.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. Thank you. Go Dogs.
Good morning. Let me just start by thanking everybody here who's associated, with the Sugar Bowl. It's been a first-class experience for us. Certainly, playoff games are different than bowl games, but they have done a tremendous job of really making us feel welcome here in New Orleans, and we can't thank them enough for it. Everything's been great. We're looking forward to the game. It's a great opportunity for us and for our program. Having been there now 3 years with Coach Sarkisian and kind of watching the transformation that's happened, in our program, this is a tremendous opportunity for us now to kind of take the next step and have a chance to play for really what our ultimate goals are. So with that, I'll take questions.
Please raise your hand and wait for a microphone, and please state your name and media outlet. We'll start right here in the front row on the left side.
Coach, I'm Dave Farenthold from the New York Times. One of the things that happened that in late 2021, after that disappointing season, when you guys were looking for more offensive linemen to rebuild the team, this new collective came about, Horns with Heart. It's now become Texas One Fund. They promised we're going to pay linemen $50,000 each to play. How much has the growth of that collective and their focus on recruiting helped you guys build the team that you have?
Well, I would start by saying, like, in recruiting, we don't lead with NIL. That's not how we do it. I think teams that have done that have really not prospered. It really is. I don't think that's the way you build a team. I don't think that's the way you build the right kind of locker room. NIL is a part of college football now. So certainly we've embraced it like everybody else has, but we weren't the only team in the country recruiting those players that had NIL opportunities for them. I'm sure other schools did as well. We felt like it was really important to add quality players to that room. We never set out to sign 7. We ultimately did. As I told somebody, they kept saying yes, so we kept taking them. And they're all still with us, which I think is maybe one of the more understated things about the culture that Coach Sarkisian has built at Texas. Where at a lot of places they've maybe recruited players who are high-level players, and for one reason or another, even though they're having success at that school, they've gone to other places. That hasn't been the case with these guys. They've all had a role for us, and they've all helped us get to this point. But I do believe, like, ultimately the relationship comes first, because the NIL opportunities, they're everywhere now, or at least there's enough of them around that if that was what it was about, it'd be more like drafting than recruiting.
All right, we're going to go to the back, right side.
Hey, Kyle. Ralph Russo, St. Francis Prep High School in Queens.
Class of?
A year before you.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've been with Sark for a while now. He's known as a really good play caller. A two-pronged question here. What makes him a good play caller? And as the offensive coordinator for Sark, what is your role in play calling?
Sure. Yeah, I will say, before I even get to that, Ralph, like, I heard Frank Pomerico is going to be here at the game as well. So we've absolutely got a St. Francis Prep reunion from different eras going on. Yeah, sure. So I've been fortunate now to be with Coach Sarkisian for 7 years, 7 seasons, from Atlanta to Alabama and now obviously here at Texas. I've always felt this way as somebody who works with the linemen and certainly heavily involved in the run game and the protections, and that's kind of the world that I live in more so than anything. I think my biggest job for him in terms of the play calling is to know what he likes. I need to know what he likes to call in the games, because that's really where I spend my focus during the week, to make sure I'm giving him the options that he wants to call on game day. What makes him, and I've said this publicly before, I don't shy away from saying it now. I think he's the best play caller that I certainly I've ever worked with, and I think maybe the top play caller in all of football right now. But I think what makes him that is his ability to see the game in real time. It's not just about the game plan and what we've looked at on film. I think as the game is happening and as the teams that we're playing are adjusting, he's adjusting with them. And I think that makes him unique, his ability to do that at a really high level. On for Old St. Francis.
We're going to stay on the right side, right in the middle.
Hey, Kyle. Andrea Adelson with ESPN.com. Good to see you again. I think this is your first availability since the news that Malik is no longer with the team and Arch is now the backup. Two-pronged question. How have things changed for him in the preparation of this game, knowing he's the backup, and how confident do you feel in the progression he's made that if he's needed in this game, he'll be able to get the job done?
I'll start with the second one, and then I'll circle back for you. Good to see you too, Andrew. I think the biggest difference for him has been now he's gotten all of the reps with the twos, whereas prior to that, he and Malik had been kind of splitting reps with the twos. You know, when you get into the season, you don't always have the opportunity to get everybody the amount of reps that you would like to. So I think that's the biggest change for him. We've got a ton of confidence in Arch. I think his progression throughout the year has been excellent. He's a real student of the game, and he's approached it like that from the very beginning. It was not. So I think probably the best thing for him and for us as a team was that when that happened, it was very easy for him to just continue to do what he was doing, because he never approached it like he was the third quarterback or the backup quarterback. He approaches every day like he's the starting quarterback, and I think that's the key when you're in a reserve role to being ready when you're called upon.
We're going to go to the left side, second row.
Kyle Kirk Bowles from the Austin American-Statesman. Obviously, you got a lot of offensive firepower on this team. If you talk about Jatavian Sanders, he doesn't always get the numbers that maybe some other people do. How would you assess his talent and potential, and where his place is in the game as tight end?
I think JT is an excellent player, and certainly a big part of what we do, and a huge weapon. And I think, you know, in the pass game, it's not as easy for the receivers and the tight ends in the pass game as is maybe for a running back. Like we can get the running back carries. We call the runs and hand them off, and he gets his carries. But you know, in the passing game, sometimes we may have a play that we think is going to go to him, and maybe just the defense plays a little different coverage and the ball goes somewhere else. And that's where, for us, having weapons in different places, that's really what makes you explosive on offense. The games where maybe X or AD got a little bit more attention, well, those are games I think where JT is his numbers are going to go up a little bit. So, you know, he's an explosive player. I will say what has made him different and made him more valuable to us as he's progressed over the last couple of years is his willingness to become a better blocker, because ultimately that's what makes you a complete player at that position. You know, you don't want to just be a little bit bigger receiver. You know, if you're going to be a tight end, then the blocking has to be part of it, and you try to force people into base defense, which, you know, this team, I don't know if we're going to talk about them in terms of their personnel, but they will play some base defense. And, you know, the matchups change when people put bigger people on the field on defense.
We're going to stay in the middle on the left side.
Hi, Coach. Caleb Young, Austin American-Statesman. Christian Jones has become, you know, one of the best offensive linemen in the nation. But 2 years ago today versus Kansas, he said that the loss against Kansas in that game in 2021 broke him. Do you remember that moment, and how would you say that Jones has evolved since then?
I think, you know, everybody in our program probably looks at that game where, you know, when you lose a game like that in overtime at home and it ends the season, we all kind of look at it and say, all right, you know, where do we have to go from here? You know, after you get over the initial disappointment, ultimately sometimes you have to break something to put it back together, you know, a little bit better. And that's probably the story of Christian's ascendancy, you know, as a player. You know, we had to completely break him down and kind of put him back together to get him to the point right now where I think he's playing at a high level. He's playing at a really high level. And he was willing to do that. So I give him really all the credit for being willing to buy in to what we were doing as a team, to what I was doing as his position coach, to really focus on the run blocking aspect of his game, which he has, to the point now where, again, I know he's going to have some opportunities above and beyond, you know, what we do this season. But really, he gets the credit for buying into it more than anybody.
We're going to the right side, front row.
Coach, you're talking about the Washington defense. You know, looking at on film, what stands out about them? What do they do particularly well? And what most concerns you Saturday?
It's very much an NFL-style defense. You know, I think that's the first thing I would say. You know, they play with base personnel, meaning 7 true front players, which is a little bit unusual in this day and age of college football. They'll play nickel defense to 11 personnel, which, again, is pretty standard. They've got excellent edge players. You know, their defensive ends are as good as anybody we've played this year. They play at a really high level. They really know their scheme. You know, they don't have as many returning starters maybe as some of the teams we've played, but they have really all over the depth chart 4th, 5th, 6th-year players. So these guys have played a lot of football. They've got excellent power in the middle. Their linebackers are elusive, very athletic. So I think from a scheme standpoint, when I say they're an NFL defense, what I mean is, yes, they've got their first and second down packages, and then on third down, it's completely different. You know, they've got an extensive third down package that really will challenge us in this game.
Stand in the front row.
Chip Brown, Horns247.com. Kyle, in the Alamo Bowl last year, you ran it 18 times for 51 yards. Can you talk about where your running game is now, post Jonathan Brooks, where I think you're averaging 30 attempts, 200 yards rushing, and what you're seeing in particular from Jaden Blue?
Yeah, I think, you know, rushing attempts, certainly we would like to have had more rushing attempts in that game, for sure. You know, when you get down and it gets to the fourth quarter and you're trying to catch up, you know, unfortunately that becomes part of it. You end up throwing it maybe a little bit more than you wanted to. When we're at our best, we have balance. You know, when people ask me to describe our offense, we are built on running the ball and play action pass. That's really what we're built on. We can do a lot of other stuff, but ultimately that's how we build it, you know, from a starting point. It was a shame for Jonathan. He was having a great year. He's a phenomenal human being. So we were all, you know, disappointed when he got hurt. But we're fortunate that that's a really talented room. You know, whether it's Sed Baxter or Jaden Blue, Keelan Robinson, all these guys have Savion Red. They've all kind of had a role in making sure we've been able to sustain the running game aspect of what we do. So, you know, I think you're going to see all those guys in the game. They're all going to play. And we've got a lot of confidence in all of them. I think that has showed up if you watch our games since when Jonathan got hurt. You know, they're all getting opportunities, and we've got confidence in them.
What has Blue shown you, though, over the last 3 games?
Yeah, Jaden is a player. It's not really just like for us. I know you guys only get to see him maybe on game day, but we see him in practice every day. So I look at it a little bit differently than that. But Jaden is a make you miss player. So he's got an explosive aspect to his game. You know, Sed is a little bit of a bigger guy, but Jaden for sure is an absolute make you miss player.
And we have time for 2 more questions, Coach. We're going to start right over here on the left side, front row.
Brandon Marcello, 24/7 Sports. We all know how talented A.D. Mitchell is, but you can't replicate, you know, experience and what he's done in 4 previous playoff games, scoring in each one. How much do you lean on that type of experience going into a game like this?
The experience part will definitely be helpful to him. You know, we've played in other big games this year, so I think the experience of going on the road in Tuscaloosa, of playing in a Big 12 championship game, every time you have an experience like that, I think it allows you to be more comfortable in the beginning of the game. Certainly he's played in big games and playoff games and championship games before. As a player, you know, he's got a skill set that we were lacking before he got here. What I mean is he is the complementary receiver to X, really, that we needed to kind of make the field a little bit more open for both of those guys and for a guy like JT. So, you know, his role in what we do in the game plan is critical. I think he's got an air of confidence about him that I think is good for everybody in the locker room.
All right, final question, front row.
Coach Flood, good morning. Terry Middleton from Horns Illustrated. At the beginning of the season, I asked you about Jake Majors, and you came back and said he's a football cyborg. Is he still super important to the offensive line, and is there other linemen who have stepped up into that cyborg status?
He is a football cyborg. He asks great questions every week, really like next-level questions, you know, that a younger player wouldn't have the ability to do that. And I think he raises the level of expectations for everybody in the offensive line room. He's got very high expectations of himself, of his kind of his standard of performance. And I think for the first and second year players in our program that have a role in that offensive line room, again, he sets the bar for them. And he's a great person, a great example for me to point to on a daily basis of, hey, if you'll just attach yourself to Jake's hip and do it the way he does it, you're going to see the rewards because obviously he has.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.